Right, I'm going to talk to you today about how the right hand works in the golf swing. I've done a video on it before, but I want to make sure we go into a little bit more detail and tell you how it's going to stop you from hooking the ball, slicing the ball, and also how it's going to stop you from flipping at the ball, which nobody wants to do. So stay with me and watch this video. Right, okay, so how the right hand works in the golf swing, okay, is quite a key fundamental. Obviously, a lot of it comes down to, first of all, making sure you've got that club on it in your hands correctly as well. And the first thing would be that we'd always try and make sure that the right hand, is placed in line or is lined up correctly with the club face, all right? You want it to be square to that club face, all right? So what we don't want to have is the right hand too far underneath, because this is going to cause excessive rolling of the forearm, and we don't want to have it too far on top as well, because that's kind of rolling of the forearm in the other way. So ideally we want to have this right hand placed directly behind the club face or in line with the club face, all right? Now, essentially how the right hand works is it's essentially more like a throw-in action, all right? So my right hand works, if I was going to throw the ball, my right hand would go back on itself, okay? Flexions and extensions, if you want to go that route, but it will go back on itself and then I'd throw through, okay? So my right hand would work this way, all right? And if I was going to throw the ball, I'd throw it that way, all right? And that's how I throw a ball if I was playing baseball or just throwing one in general. And it's the same thing with the golf swing as well. I want my right hand to be working in that action, all right? And that's generally going to help me to keep the club face square or stable to the path, if that makes sense, all right? So what I don't want to do though is I don't want to be rolling my hand back and forth. All right, so I'm going to be taking a club head away, or taking the club away with my right hand working back on itself, okay? So it's extending back this way, and I'm finding the kink in the back of my hand, like so, all right? This is going to keep the club face square to the path, all right? And that's what we're really looking for. What we don't want to see is excessive rolling of the forearm or too much this way. We want to keep it nice and neutral and going back in a nice neutral line, but keeping it square, all right? And that's where we're going to be working on. And this is one of the things that we see quite a lot with golfers. I see quite a tendency, especially with summer golfers, is that they're going to take the club away and they're going to roll the forearm away like so and get the club face to fan open, so the club face is quite up. Even in a toe up position, I know I did a video not so long ago with the Fowler drill, but ideally we've moved away from that now because we've found that it's more consistent to be in this sort of position here, because that's square to my swing path. All right, because what we don't want to create is too much forearm rotation, and we see a lot of golfers do this, you know, where they're rolling the forearms through impact. Now that's not going to hit the ball straight for you. So, I mean, to show you in an upright view, if I was to stand here like so, and I was to swing the golf club, and I was to just work my right hand back and forth in this manner, okay, so it's back and forth, and I'm keeping it like so, all right, my right hand's flexed back on itself and flexed through. There's no forearm rotation in there, and my club face stays stable to the path through pretty much throughout the whole stroke there, all right? What I'm not doing is I'm not doing this action, okay? I'm not rolling back and rolling through, okay? We see some golfers, especially on the follow through, they have a tendency to roll the hands through as well, okay? A lot of it's because they go to the right hand side. A lot of it is because they get the club stuck behind them. They've been taught to do this shallow the shaft movement, and they get too shallow because they already have enough shallow in as it is, and they actually end up going too shallow with the shaft. Club face gets wide open, and what they have to do from there is then flip it to try and get it to come back. And that's when you see a lot of this flip action that we talk about, loss of power, hitting the ball high, and just lack of control. One minute they're hitting it to the right hand side, and next minute they're going to hook it to the left, okay? So if we can try and keep the forearm rotation down to a minimum by working the hands correctly, which is getting the right hand to go back on itself, keeping the club face square to the path of the club, and swinging down and through, you're going to have a lot more straighter shots. If I can just work my hands going this way and that way, the only thing I'm going to be affecting when I swing the golf club is the loft of the club. Okay, so the longer I can keep that right hand back on itself, all I'm going to do is keep the club face square, but my right hand's just going to de-loft the club face. I'm going to take loft off the face, and that's going to hit the ball lower. Or if I allow that right hand to be used correctly or used too early, what you'll find is I'm actually then going to start adding loft to the club face, but my club face remains square to the target line. And that's really important that you understand that. And that's what we're going to try and do with you today and try and work on you and give you some exercises to do to try and work on that. All right, so that's really what we mean by using the right hand correctly. Now some of you will notice that when I get the club to about here somewhere, what will happen is once I go to about here, the club will start going behind my hands, and this will create a little bit of rotation in my shoulder bone area. Okay, it's not because I'm physically rolling the club. As I go back, I get to about here, this arm has to rotate, it has to do that. So as I swing back to about here, it will then rotate into that position. All right, this then allows me to bring the club back down into a proper position. I'll get the club pretty square at the top from there as well. If you notice that even though it's going back fairly closed, as my arm rotates in the socket, it's now fairly square. Okay, I can bring it back down and string through, and I'm always in a square and straight position. All right, so this arm has to rotate, so it does fold back on itself. Same as my left arm, that will rotate as well. All right, so as I'm swinging through to hit the ball, I'm going from here, square, rotate, down to square, and then rotate through here. That's how I'm working on the way through here, but we'll do more about the follow through in a bit. All right, that's just a general reason of what we're trying to talk about in this video today, is how the right hand should work and the feelings that you're going to get. So learning to use your right hand correctly is a real key fundamental to the golf swing that everybody should learn. If you can learn this, I can promise you, you will hit the ball better, you'll compress it better, you'll be a lot straighter, and you'll have more control of the club as you have ever had before. So it's worth giving this a try, even if you don't quite believe it yet. Give it a try, because you never know, this could be the key fundamental that you need in order to play better golf. Okay, so just to give you more of a visual age of what it actually looks like, I've got myself my special glove that I've made myself. It's just a glove that I've put a bit of alignment stick through, just poked a few holes through. But this will actually indicate to you and show you how well my forearms work during the swing. All right. When I set up to it at address, you can see that it's pretty level here. But when I make the golf swing, okay, it goes back, and as I swing halfway back to this point here, my left wrist works in an upward action. Okay, and my right wrist works on its back on itself. All right, I'm in this position here where I've got the club face square, or it's parallel to my swing path. Okay, it's a very powerful action to be into. But you can see here that as I swing to this point here, on what we were looking at really is like this point here between the midway down point and this midway through point. We're looking for very zero forearm action on the way back and on the way through. Okay, so I'll talk about the backswing first and I'll go into the forward swing. But that's really what we're looking for. We're looking for very zero forearm rotation. Now this glove shows you that if I was to just to fan the club, you can see how my right hand fans backwards and it rolls back on itself. All right, so I'm looking for it to go back, up, down. So as I come down into the ball, the club face is pointing down to the ground, my right hand's pointing downwards. Oh, hello. Very windy over here today. It's like not the nicest day at all. It's not pleasant at all to be in. Okay, so as I swing back, as I get to about midway point here, when the club is now starting to go over my hands, you can see for most of it, my forearm has remained, or my hand has remained level or in line with my path. All right, and that's very important you understand that. So as I swing down though, as I pull into my position now, move up into the left-hand side, move up to the left-hand side of the ball, my arm's starting to work downwards, my hand has repositioned itself to where it was going back. Okay, club face is pointing downwards to a certain degree, it's not toe up, pointing downwards, and my palm, or my right-hand palm, is still flexed back on itself, and it's on top of the shaft. You can see that? From here then, all I've got to do is then push my left hip back to meet where the right hip is. My right hip is still back, and push my left hip back from there, putting pressures in the ground to do that. And then I'm going to feel as though that I'm throwing the club, my hand, to hit the ball. It will happen later on though, but that's what I'm going to get a feeling of, is back and throw. All right, there's going to be no forearm rotation. I'm not going to really roll through the shot as much as I possibly can. I'm going to try and keep it nice and simple and nice and steady. And that's really one thing that I would suggest that you work on. All right, and it's really a great drill to do. So I'm swinging back just to get that feeling of that palm staying down to the ground more. And then from here, I'm going to go swing down and I'm going to release to the target. Okay, so when I've done the downswing and I've come in and I've hit the ball, okay, the next part then is obviously the follow through, okay, and what happens after that. And again, because I'm working my hand in this sort of throwing action, okay, or this action, all right, I don't have a tendency to roll the forearms over. So as I come down and to hit the ball, my forearm is nice and parallel to the swing path. As I hit the ball, my hand is going to work in an upward action and my left hand is going to work back on itself. Okay, so it's going to go in this sort of action. All right, and this again eliminates the rolling action of the forearm. So as I swing back, I swing down, hit the ball. This is my impact position here, and then I'm going to work it upwards. All right, I'm going to work upwards to this position here. Now it looks like I've rolled my forearm, but I feel like I've done this action to hit the ball. Now what happens here then means that the club face isn't having excessive rolling action. What I don't want to do is see the forearms cross or pass over each other. All right, that's dangerous areas to play. I know some great golfers do that, and I'm totally aware of that, and I'm sure there'll be some people that will remind me of that. But these guys are excessively good players. You know, these are the best players in the world, and we can't all be like that. But there's a great movement towards the golfers now practicing, you know, elite golfers learning to do this move back, holding that angle, and then throwing through to hit the ball. If I was to hold my right hand back here with my left hand like so, and I pulled down like this, and if I just let it go, my hand would work naturally in that position. If I did that and held it at a twisted angle, like so, with my palm facing outwards, my hand would want to naturally release this way. And if you're doing the same pressures on the downswing where you're putting the club shaft behind you, where's that going to go from here? It's got to, the force is going to then force you to do this. Now I know that could be a speed producer, all right, and some people again will probably remind me of that, but again, it's excessive rolling action, and to get the timing and the connection right on that is quite hard to do. I'd much rather be playing against somebody who's doing this action than somebody who's doing the least forearm action or this throwing action, all right? So there is two releases out there. There's forearm release or the rolling release, and then there's a throw release. I would suggest for most golfers, especially amateur golfers, is they learn how to do the throw release, all right? This will help you out with consistency, no end and no doubt, all right? It's also the same though with every other club that you have in the bag. It doesn't change from whether it's your driver or your sand iron, or even your putter as well. You're still going to work the right hand in that manner, all right? So remember that. So facing on down this way, my right hand works in a throwing action. I feel like I hit the ball and then I throw to release the club. Hit and throw, all right? That's the motion that I want, and throw, all right? So my left hip is working backwards. I'm putting pressure in my left heel and I'm throwing that way, all right? This is going to create speed and a lot of power for you through the shot. Right, so how do we practice this then? It's very simple really. You can take just a wedge if you wanted to, or an 8-iron, whatever you want. You can put it on a T-peg if you want to, and you're just going to do some one-handed shots, all right? Just going to clip them off a T-peg if you need to make it a lot easier. So you're taking away angle of attack and so on, because your main focus here is working on how the right hand works back and through, all right? So I want you to feel as though it hinges on the way back, that it goes back on itself, and on the way through it then releases towards the target, but you're releasing it on an upward, so on this sort of angle on the way through. You can see how my club face remains fairly square, all right? So take your setup position with a wedge, weight a little bit on the left hand side, make sure you're just leaning back, and all you're going to do is just swing back and swing through, all right? And I'm just working my right hand in the correct manner, and I'm just reinforcing it, I'm training it. All right, I'm not making silly swings, I'm just swinging a little bit back, a little bit through. All right, lean on my left hand side, back and through. And what I'm feeling like is that my right hand stays facing to the ground. That's what I feel like on the backswing for me. Some golfers, you know, if you've been excessively rolling it open like so, obviously the hand is facing to the sky, or even if it's facing dead in front of you, that's not a good position either, all right? So that's just a great way to practice this, is just to hinge the right wrist back and hinge it through. You can see mine's hitting the middle of the net every single time because I'm not rolling the club face through as I hit the shot, all right? And that's one thing that I see a lot of amateurs doing, is they do a lot of this rolling action through the shot because they're trying to salvage a shot going out to the right hand side. All right, so that's how you can do it in the first instance. One of the key things that you could add into when you're just using your right hand just for chipping, you're getting a feel for this right hand how it works, okay, is when you're just swinging down to hit the ball, as you feel in the motion coming through, I just want you to feel as though that you're just pushing that left hip back just as you're swinging through. All right, so you just get a feeling of that left hip being pushing backwards. All right, your left leg is pushing it back. It's just going to help you strike the ball a little bit better. So back and through. All right, you're just going to get a much better contact on the ball. This is going to help to time the throw up, if that makes sense. So if I was just using my hands and arms, it would probably flap about at the bottom. But if I just throw in a little bit of turn, this will just time the throw correctly so that it happens just after impact. All right, this is where we really want it. That's the golden rule here. It's just after impact. Don't want it just before. All right, so just timing up that movement here, just pushing that back, will just give you that feeling of the correct release. Okay, it will happen a little bit later because you're using the hips correctly. All right, so just make sure you add that into the stroke as well when you're doing it. Right, okay, once you feel comfortable just doing it with a wedge one-handed, then you can put both hands on. I've gone into an 8-iron now, and then I can just do the same thing. I can make a few practice swings, and I can work on just swinging the club head back just a little bit if I want to at first, just only hitting little chippy shots down the fairway. But I could probably hit it, 100 yards maybe easily. I'm just working back and through, and I'm working on hitting the hand or using the hand as I did with my wedge. I'm just taking those feelings that I had with the little wedge shots and just progressing it now to a bigger swing. So just going to make my setup, have a swing back and through. All right, and I'm feeling like I'm doing that throwing action, and that's the key thing here. It's just training. All right, once you start feeling comfortable with that and you start hitting straight shots, you'll notice that the ball will go fairly straight when you do this and you do it correct. If it starts going left, it's because you're adding in forearm rotation again, so just remember that. So as you swing back through, you can notice every single one of those has hit the middle of my net. All right, the balls are actually lining up nicely with each other in the net itself. So it's really important that you learn this. If I was going to teach anybody a fundamental drill, then that would be really an important one to do. All right. So learning how to use the right hand correctly after you've got the grip correct is probably one of the biggest fundamentals to learn, in my opinion, on how the golf swing works. So back and through, then I'm making golf swings that way. If you can do that, I can promise you'll start to hit the ball a lot better and a lot straighter, which is number one fundamental in golf, I think. We want to try and hit the ball as straight as we possibly can without much deviations left and right. If you can do this, I can promise you, and you can work a little bit on this, I can promise you, you will start to hit the ball a lot better and a lot further and a lot straighter. Hopefully that's given you a slightly clearer understanding of how this right hand works. It's pretty easy really. If you can throw a ball, then you can play great golf. There's no reason for it. You would never throw a ball by having your hand twisted like this and throwing it like that. Your hand would go straight back and straight through. It's a more accurate way of doing it, but also it's how the joints work and how they line up. It's going to put better compression on the ball. So it's a real key thing that you learn to do this. So thank you for watching, and I hope that this has been helpful for you. If you have any questions, please comment in the box below. I'd be more than happy to help answer any questions that you might have or any thoughts that you have on this video. And if you want some more of this, please subscribe, like it, and share it with other people. The more views and watches I get, the better I can make this channel.